Hi, I'm Mrs. Rose. I teach fourth grade at Bethany Christian School in Melbourne, Florida. Today I'm going to teach you about a concept called teaching math with children's literature. I'm using the book Circumference and the First Round Table. These are the questions that you, my students, are going to be looking for the answers to. When did the trouble begin? What was Circumference's son's name? How do the names circumference, radius, and diameter fit into the math concepts that you're learning about through this story? What is a parallelogram? And then you're going to choose the answer that best fits the meaning of the word radius. Those are things to listen for. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy this math book. Circumference and the First Round Table. Long ago, in a land known as Camelot, there lived many knights and ladies. The ruler was a mighty but gracious man named King Arthur. During many years of peace and good harvest, the people lived happily. Notice it was times of good harvest and peace that the people were living happily. The trouble began when they saw the army of their neighbors to the north gathering to the borders. These people were known as the circumventors. They looked as if they might be preparing to make war. King Arthur called upon his bravest and most trusted knights to plan what to do. So was there trouble right now? Or did they just think there might be trouble? Let's find out. The knights rode as fast as they could to the king's castle. Circumference lived nearby, so his family came with him. Circumference was married to Lady Di, who came from the town of Amiter. They had a son named Radius. Radius was very small and quite young, but his keen mind and boundless energy moved more than made up for what he lacked in height and age. And as you can see, he is much shorter than everyone at the table. Notice the shape of the table. After the first day of meetings with all the kings and the knights, Circumference with Lady Di, "Oh," he groaned, "my throat hurts. I have to shout to be heard at the other end of the long rectangular table. Everyone has to shout, and the king is very upset." "Why don't you fix the table?" suggested Lady Di. "How can we do that?" Circumference asked. "Well," said Lady Di, "you could cut it in half. Look, here's a drawing of the table. It has two long sides and two short sides. If you cut it in half and put two halves side by side, you'll have a table with four equal sides. Is she correct?" Yes, she's correct. Let's see if that solves the problem. Lady Di was, "What a good idea, Circumference." Circumference called for the carpenter, Geo of Metri. Geo began to work immediately. The next day, the new table was ready. Everyone commented on the wonderful square shape. However, another problem arose. At each corner of the table, the knights whispered to each other while someone else was talking. Sir Galahad exclaimed, "King Arthur, how can we meet to discuss a solution when people talk secretly to each other?" "Sir Galahad is correct," King Arthur responded. "We have to come here to talk of defending our land against the circumscribers, not to talk in secrecy." After the meeting, King Arthur told Circumference a new table was needed. That night, Circumference told Lady Di about the problems at the square table. Lady Di thought for a moment and then said, "What if we cut the square table diagonally? We could make two halves together to create a diamond." She drew the diagram and said the king could sit at one end and you could sit at the opposite end. Everyone would be close enough to hear, but the knights would not be in any tight corners. Do you think this might be a good solution? And have we discussed any of our circumference or diameters or any of those yet? After seeing the plan, Circumference agreed that it was a good idea. Geo the carpenter said, "In carpentry class, they call this shape a parallelogram. I have the table ready by tomorrow." The next day, Sir Lancelot and Sir Gawain were amazed to see the table in the shape of a parallelogram. The others liked it, but King Arthur was not happy sitting at the sharp point. The king let the knights have a jousting practice and a sword play while he spoke with Circumference. Circumference. The point of the table sticks into me like a sword. We need to think about ways to prevent war, but this table makes me feel like fighting. Can you fix it? I will do my best, sire, said Circumference. So we've seen a couple of different ideas, and they haven't found the solution yet. But do they give up? No. Just like we teach, if at first we don't make it, we fail, we'll be okay. We'll just try it a different way. That afternoon, he stood by a field and watched the others joust. It was a beautiful day with blue skies and flags flapping in the breeze. Sir Gawain's flag was blue with a white cross. Sir Lancelot's flag was green with lions, and Sir Torrent's flag was green with the eagle. The flags were all similar in shape. They were all, you guessed it, triangles. That's it, said Circumference. A triangular table. Circumference called Geo and explained. Geo said, if we cut the parallelogram table in half, that would leave two triangles. One triangle must be too small, or might be too small. So they measured the proposed triangular table and realized that 4 people could not fit on each side. Geo says, let's think some more. And he went to discuss shapes with Lady Di. Yes, said Lady Di, the triangles would be too small. So cut off the corners like this and make an octagon. Look, it will solve the problem. So you see how they're taking shapes, cutting them into other shapes, trying to solve this problem of the king being able to have a meeting about what's going on in the country. When the knights sat at the octagon table, each one wanted a side all to himself. 8 sides, 12 knights. Who would share a side with the other? They agreed that the king should have a side all to himself because he was their leader, but that left 7 sides and 11 people. Knights, let there be order, said King Arthur calmly. We need to remember that we are here for the defense of our land. How can we talk at this table with this problem of corners and sides? Circumference, have the carpenters build a table shaped like an egg, and perhaps then we can behave more like a flock. So who's coming up with the answer at this time? The others have tried, and he's allowed them to, but now he's trying to come up with a solution, which is the king. Circumference drew up plans for an oval table for Geo. This table is going to be harder to build since it has no straight edges, said Geo. I will begin at once. When the knights met again, they were all impressed by the oval table. Sir Lancelot suggested that they raise their goblets and drink a toast. All the knights raised their goblets, but there was a great commotion from the ends of the table. The knights at the ends of the oval table bumped into the king as they raised their goblets. No one had enough room. Some of the knights began to argue. Then King Arthur shouted, "Stop! All, leave me until tomorrow, except for Circumference." So isn't it kind of odd that they're trying to find a solution to what might become a war on the outside of their castle, and they're creating a war on the inside of their castle? After talking to King Arthur, Circumference returned home discouraged once again. Radius piped up, "Father, when I have a problem that I cannot solve, I do something else for a while. Why don't we go for a ride?" That afternoon, Circumference, Radius, and Lady Di went riding. No one said much until Radius shouted, "Father, look, a tree has fallen over." "So it has," observed the knight. What do you think will happen next? "Don't you see, Father? There's your table." Lady Di got off her horse for a closer look. She stood on her tiptoes and stretched her arm up as high as it could go. Her fingertips just met the upper edge of the trunk. "It should be big enough," she said. "This part is as tall as I can reach, and the wood seems to be of good quality." Circumference summoned Geo. "Cut up a cross-section of the trunk and make it into a tabletop. Leave the bark on the outside edges," he told Geo. "I like the rough feel." Geo and his helpers sawed through the huge tree trunk. Then they hoisted the heavy slab into an ox cart, and off they went to Geo's workshop. Geo worked all night building the new table. I think I got it. Sorry. When the knights met the next day, the table was finished. Everyone was content. No one shouted or whispered. No one felt cornered or trapped. No one was poked in the stomach, and no one felt squished. Everyone had an equal position around the table. As they talked, they decided the best plan was to try to make peace with their neighbors. King Arthur was so pleased that he announced they would celebrate that night. Peace for the circumferences. Soon everyone was enjoying the music, dancing, and banquet. Suddenly the music stopped. A messenger rushed in and handed a sealed parchment to King Arthur. The king read it and smiled. Ladies, knights, and guests, I have excellent news. The circumscribers are not planning an attack. They want only to measure the area of their kingdom. There will be peace in the land. Hooray! Everyone cheered, till the king held up his hand for silence. To honor these knights who gathered at this table to save our kingdom, let them henceforth be known as the Knights of the Round Table. Let us thank Circumference and Lady Di and their son Radius. They made this round table possible. Everyone cheered again. Furthermore, because Lady Di of Anmeter has reached that is equal to the distance across the table, we will name this measurement for her. We will call it the diameter. I am proud of Radius, too, added the King Arthur. Someday he will become a fine knight. He may be small, but he has tall ideals. Everyone nodded and clapped. Let us call this small measurement from the center of the circle to the edge the radius. Finally, let us not forget our clever Circumference. Since it was his idea to leave the bark on the outside edge of our table, we will name the outside edge of any circle after him. Let us call this the circumference. Circumference bowed to the king, and everyone rose from their seats and began cheering and whistling and stomping their feet. It was the happiest celebration that anyone could remember. Speaking of remembering, did you remember the answers to the questions that I told you were going to have? When did the trouble begin in Camelot? What was Circumference's son's name? How do the names circumference, radius, and diameter fit into the math concept that you're learning? What's a parallelogram? And what is the meaning of the word radius? Thank you for letting me entertain you with the story Circumference and the First Round Table. This has been Math with Children's Literature.